You're making one right decision today. You're listening to Handcuffs and Sage.
Three badass moms bringing you all the true crime and paranormal your heart desires.
I'm Red.
I'm Timo.
I'm Dre. And don't let your kids listen. Seriously, just don't.
Hey, it's Handcuffs and Sage. Woo, woo,
Woohoo! Hey.
This is Red.
Hey, this is Timo.
Hey, this is Dre.
Oh my goodness. Do y'all have your positivity? I do.
I have tea and white wine in a mug.
Tea and
Together?
wine.
I know. I'm finishing
For
up.
more cocktail recipes, follow Timo.
Yeah, I drank some wine last night because I was down in the dumps because my Saints lost. And it's still up in the air if Drew Brees is actually retiring. He hasn't come out and said it, but his body language last night with like throwing kisses to the audience, walking away, turning and taking one last look at the Superdome. Come on, you guys, he's retiring.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
brokenhearted. So I drank some wine last night and I had a little bit left over. So I'm finishing up tonight.
Very interesting. I highly recommend it. So checking out Surviving Death on Netflix, just a lot of insight in lots of different areas, right? And your death experiences, mediums.
It was awesome. Yeah.
So hopefully, it was great. It was great. So hopefully we'll cover that on maybe some down the rabbit hole episodes later on. How is your week, y'all? How you doing, Dre? How you doing, girl?
So I had a rough day. I had a rough week, but I'm optimistic. So I'm doing better today. I did have something really cool happen. I had a awesome freaking badass nurse that was like willing to teach me all kinds of stuff. Just like, the little things that you should know when you work in the ICU. And you get to talking and sometimes you have a connection with someone. Yeah. And the connection that we had was just insane. Like she was like, I will only work with you. She chose me over an RN. You guys, I'm only an LVN, right?
Ooh,
she chose me over an RN. I got talked to about pursuing an RN license in my future, and I always said I wouldn't do it because I was too old or because I had a kid or whatever.
Never too old, girl. Never.
I just didn't. Honestly, I was being lazy. I didn't want to do the work. Right? That was what it was. I just didn't want to go back to school. I was very content.
Keep it real.
But this experience has definitely opened my eyes to the possibility, which is cool. But the cool thing that happened that I want to talk about is that we just talked all day long as we're working our asses off in the rooms doing what we do, and come to find out that she is super in tune with her paranormal side.
Ooh, and I love it.
Just not just her, but like the respiratory therapist that was working with us, same thing. She was like, too many things have happened in this unit where they've both seen it, and just like instances. And she would like walk me around and she was like, there's a room like 24 that's like really creepy. There's actually, if you walk into the room, people sense of sadness, right? And there's on the wall, like you can't see it. She has a video of this, guys. You can't see it head on, and you can't see it all the time. But there's like a handprint that's like smacks and then shears down like this. But it's on the wall, right? And you can see it like this, like it's like a sweaty hand and it smears down. And so like you can't see it head on, but if you like look at it from the side, it's there. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. So you can't even explain the why. Like, is it a dirty wall? People have tried to wash it off. It doesn't go away.
That gave me chills when you said that.
That's cool.
I did too.
That's
cool. Room attached, like there's like a secondary room that attaches to that room, and then there's another room because it's called like an anti-room. It's like when you need to get clean, you go into like it's like a small room where you get clean, and that room is connected to like room 23. And there was a lady in room 23, and so there's two things that happened. One, the lady in room 23, she was paralyzed and her call light went off. Now explain that. How does a call light go off when the person can't push the button?
What?
Right? Super weird.
So something new that she needed help and they pushed the button for her because she couldn't do that kind of a thing. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. And then there was another one where a lady was there and she was like, she was asking for help, and then she couldn't speak, right? Because she had like the ventilator on, and the call light went off, and she's pointing to room 24, and she says she sees something, and then they were like, what do you mean there's nobody here? And then she's pointing to room 24 with this look of fear on her face. I mean, these stories, guys, are just so crazy. It's just stuff happens there. So a little bit sad, but I do want to talk about this one too. On what was last night? Sunday night. No, it happened twice, on Saturday and on Sunday. In a room, somebody passed away. And when it happens, everything is attached to make sure that there's no more heartbeat and there's no more oxygen saturation, right? There's no more anything going through. And then the doctor will come in and call the time of death. With this patient, he flatlined. There was no heartbeat, but the saturation kept going up. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Wow.
So it was really strange.
Interesting.
You see the saturation go down to 0, and then we're waiting for everything to finalize and the doctor to come in, and then we call the doctor and say, okay, you can come and call the time of death now. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the oxygen saturation goes up to like 86, and we're like, what? No. So she's kind of pinned this phenomenon to mostly electrical occurrences minus the handprint. Because she even walked into a room where the oxygen saturation was going off and beeping, but it wasn't even attached to anybody.
What?
So weird stuff like that happens. Yeah. And then I've been in the bathroom like 3 times where the light, you walk in and it's automatic and it turns on, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting on the toilet, like not even seconds later, and the light turns off, and I'm like, okay, stop it. And then it turns on again.
Oh no.
That's just rude. The
like
light's
3
just
times.
rude. Yeah.
And I'm literally like, okay, stop. I need the light on. And then the light turns on again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hospitals.
All right.
Yeah.
Are y'all ready?
So real quick, Ren,
yes.
because you were talking about when your grandpa passed away, and when you received a blanket that had been passed down from generation to generation, that your grandfather had, and you and your daughter kind of felt anxiety a little bit when you guys were holding the blanket. So it's in a special place in your house, and you've been having some crazy shit happen in your house in the past like couple weeks. But I wanted to bring this up because my sister came over today, and I was just talking about it, and I'm like, oh, I took a picture of it. Let me show you. So I had said on the podcast episode when you were talking about it that I was going to take a picture and I was going to put it on the site. And then I was at your house a while ago, and I'm like, where's the blanket? So I went to it, and you're all like, don't touch it. I go, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to take a quick picture of it. So I took a quick picture of it, didn't think anything of it, put it back in my pocket. We continued what we were doing, whatever. And I have not searched for it ever since. I have not put it on the site. So I was talking to my sister today about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I took a picture. The picture did not take. I can't find it. I can't find it anywhere on my phone. It didn't allow me to take the picture.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so weird. I know I took it. I know I took it.
I know because I was standing there with you when you took it.
I know.
You guys, that can't. I just can't. So let me give an update on the blanket
Don't
situation.
burn it though. Whatever you do, I know you want to burn it. Did you sage it?
We saged the whole house after it came in, but things have been happening in our home. So I just want to update everyone. We have our group message, right, where we kind of share things. So I just want to share with everybody else that this last week, 4 times, I have come downstairs and my front door is hanging wide open.
No.
This never, ever, ever happened. And now it's happened 4 times in a week. And one of the times, buckle up, was at 2 a.m.
No.
I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get water, and my door in the middle of the night is hanging open. It was so bone chilling. I don't know what to think about it. This has never been an issue before. We always keep our door closed and locked because we have 2 dogs, never want them to get out. How trippy is that continues to happen?
Yeah,
that really, really freaks me out. I get the feeling though, it's just something saying I'm here. Does that make sense?
right.
Just over and over again, something saying I'm here, which is crazy, but I really can't wrap my mind around the door being open. And I even said to you guys in the text, I'm like, am I that dumb white person in the scary movie where shit's happening? I'm like, it's nothing. You know, because that's what it feels like. This weird shit is happening. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, you guys, let's do this. So I wanted to do this one for a little bit. I watched this on Netflix a while ago, and it was so interesting. I was enthralled by it because I hadn't heard all the details about it. So it's on Netflix. There's 4 episodes of it. It's called The Ripper. Okay. It's amazing. It's amazing. This is not the Jack the Ripper story. Okay. This happens in West Yorkshire, England. So this is the Yorkshire Ripper. Okay.
Right.
Such an interesting story. So I'm going to take you through the series. If you haven't seen it, watch it, but we're going to be talking about it. So I'm going to take the 4 episodes that they have, and I'm turning it into a 2-part. So today will be one part. Okay. Part 1. That's such an interesting. So what I immediately take away from this series is England is always cold and wet and foggy and muddy. So not my place. Not interested in visiting. Sorry, you guys. Not going to England ever. It's so cold. Every picture they post, I'm like, ugh, no, thank you.
The sun does come out every once in a while,
and it still looks cold. It still looks cold.
Yeah, it's still cold. But I love London. I would totally move there in a hot minute.
I'm going to pass. You can have all my notes. That's what I took from this series, honestly. Okay, you guys, buckle up. So when we start this series, we hear this amazing English accent, and it's a man speaking. And he's talking about his mom. But he says, of course, mum, which I love. Love. So he says, Mum was going out. It was the middle of the week. All the kids had gone to bed. He was about 5 years old, and his sister was about 6. In the middle of the night, he remembers being woken up and his sister saying, Mom's not come back. Let's get up and let's look for her. Okay. They go outside. It's cold. It's dark, just like during the day also, because this is in England. And they're looking all over for their mom. So just picture these 2 really sweet looking kids looking for their mom. They don't know where their mom went. They're going through the garden. They're going out to the field, and they just keep looking for their mom, and they can't find her. Okay. So this is the story of the ultimate crime against women, and the heart of a monster is who did it. It's just a crazy story, and we're going to go through it. This was 5 years of terror, which is amazing that it went on for that long. This was one of the biggest crimes investigations ever at the time in the United Kingdom. So we're going to start off in 1975 in Leeds, Northern England. I learned a lot about England and where cities and towns are. So, ask me anything. I know where it is. Just kidding. I don't. Okay.
Let's go.
So we have police constable in West Yorkshire. He's part of the task force. His name is Andy Laptu, and he talks throughout the series. He says one day his boss gets off the phone and says, right, load up the van. We're going to Leeds. There's been a murder. A woman's body has been discovered, but not yet identified.
The body is found in a playing field in Chapeldown district of Leeds. They're doing an area search for anything that they can find, any kind of evidence they can find. You see, it's a very cold morning. This is taking place in the 70s, so everyone's hair and beards and sideburns is on point. And you see a line of police constables all walking in line, like looking down at their feet, right? Taking slow steps. So they're looking for evidence in this field. The woman had been brutally battered about the head. There was horrifying injuries to her body, and the police are not disclosing those yet at the time. She is identified as 28-year-old divorcee Wilma McCann. She's found 150 yards from her home where she lived with her 4 children. So they show a picture of Wilma, and Wilma has short blonde hair, and she just has a look like life has been rough on her. Just a sadness in her eyes in the photo that they post of her. And it was actually kind of a sad photo, I think. So the man that we heard from in the beginning of the episode is Richard McCann, Wilma's son, which is so sad. He said that they were out in the street and there was a commotion going on. It was actually kind of exciting because there was police officers there and they didn't know what was going on. And then the question, police come to question these little kids. He says he remembers that neighbors come and they're bringing the kids hot cocoa, which was very special to them because of where they lived. They were very poor, and so that was a treat. It's just so sad. They show a picture of these 4 very small, sweet looking children kind of sitting together at the time. And he said everyone was just making a fuss over them and he had no idea what was going on. An officer sat these 4 children down and said their mom had been taken to heaven and they weren't going to see her again. Oh my God, my heart just, it was so sad. So sad. So then we're hearing from Mike Green. He is in a senior forensic medicine. He's a forensic pathologist at the University of Leeds. And he's talking about Wilma and her body. He's saying Wilma had been struck twice on the back of the head. There was 3 groups of stab wounds, 2 in her breast, 1 in the abdomen. These were very unusual stab wounds. They could tell that the person took the time to push the instrument around. Oh. Okay, so it's not like someone, right, is in a fury stabbing. What they're doing is they're stabbing and doing this, right? Horrible. Turning it around. This is a very disturbed person, and they can't find any fibers or trace evidence on the body. Okay. So then we have Dennis Hoban, Detective Chief Superintendent in Leeds. And he's saying that at 1 a.m., they know that Wilma was alive and was standing in front of this club. This club was called Room at the Top Club. And she had been seen crossing the road. She jumped in front of a car and she said to this motorist, "Can you give me a lift to Scott Hall Road?" And that is actually where her body is later found. Okay. This is in Chapelton. Chapelton is a very, very poor area. 21% of people are unemployed. There's like secret drinking clubs there. The people there don't like the police. There's a lot of tension between the people and the police there. One of the police officers says, like, everywhere you look, there's some guys with gold teeth and diamonds in their teeth, and I'm not going to mess with them. Like, it's just a very contentious relationship there. There's a large number of prostitutes in Chapelton, and they call it a red light area. So we've all heard that term before, the red light district. I did sometime. I mean, Timo, I think you did too. We know what the red light area is. Okay. So that's what's happening in this area. Her body is found near the red light area. So an assumption that was immediately made here is that it is prostitute related. Okay. And they do keep saying prostitute. I like sex worker. Just to let y'all know, in this series, they say prostitute. It's the 70s. They're not woke. Okay. So a detective is speaking on the news about the case. And he's saying Wilma liked the nightlife. She was somewhat of a prostitute. And it just seems so disrespectful the way he says this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if someone went on the news and said that today, I think that detective would get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, it was a completely different world. In the press, they came out and they would call Wilma a good time girl. How fucking rude. So awful. This is a mother. She has 4 children. You dig faces.
Yeah, guess what? And she could have a good time if she wanted to.
Yes, that's correct, Timo. I do all the
No
time.
judgment.
I'm a good time girl. How you like that? So they have this newspaper. It's called the Yorkshire Post. And one of the people that works there is Tony Harney. And he says that murder and mayhem absolutely attract people, which we know well because we're into murder and mayhem stories. And so a lot of people were reading the newspaper to hear about what was going on. Okay. So then we also hear from someone who works at the Post. His name is Alan Whitehouse. And he would call this Wilma's murder a very minor story. It would just go away in a few days. She was just a prostitute. Who cares? This is a fish and chip story. Do you know what a fish and chip story is? It's a story you read on page 6, and a few days later, you're using that newspaper to wrap up your food to go somewhere. It's a fish and chip story.
Right.
That just killed me. Because if they just said mother of 4 murdered, I think it would be a lot different. Just in my opinion. We're hearing from Richard, and he's talking about his mom, Wilma. He says, my mom's life was hell. My mom was a survivor. She did whatever she needed to do to bring home some money into the house. Money was always a big issue. One time at the social service office, she had to threaten to leave us kids there if they didn't give us any money. A couple of times the kids were sent to foster families because Wilma had breakdowns. She struggled. Their father was a terrible drinker and gambler, and then they separated at the end of 1974, and then he wasn't around. Father left. Wilma's on her own. She's raising these 4 kids. It's just awful. So Richard is saying that him and his siblings were told to gather their things. He felt really afraid. He didn't know what was going on. They were put in a car, and they pulled up to this huge building, and he said that he was so afraid. But then he realizes this is a children's home. So all of these children are now taken to a children's home, and they're left motherless. So it's just a really sad situation. So the feeling is that this is just a prostitute murder. Who cares? And stranger murders are very difficult to solve, right? Because there's no connection with that person. It's very hard to find a stranger murder who did it. So then we have January 1976. A few months after Wilma's murder, a body of a woman is found behind a bakery in Chapelton, okay? The body is identified as 43-year-old Emily Jackson, and she's a mother of 3. She's found in this really muddy, terrible-looking alleyway, and her feet are displayed out towards the road with her legs spread, right? So definitely positioned in this way. The body was near Chapelton, which is a red light area. It's a short distance from the Gaiety. So the Gaiety was like this strip club. It attracted all sorts of like shady characters, and a lot of prostitutes would, hang out around the Gaiety, maybe to pick up people after they got their striptease done. Okay. So Emily was working as a prostitute. She would use the family van. It was blue, old school looking. They showed a picture of it. She would drive it into Leeds, and she would use it as like her place of business, right? Like instead of a hotel room, she would use the van, right, to bring in Johns. At the time, her husband was really close to being declared bankruptcy and prosecuted, so they really needed the money, and that's why she was prostituting herself, which is really, really sad. We hear from Emily's son, Neil Jackson. He says the police showed up to their home. He was 17 years old at the time, and they let him know that their mom had been murdered. And then they told him that she was a sex worker, and he had no idea. Awful.
Ugh.
Good job, police. You're killing the
Yeah,
game,
right.
right? And then they have him go, and he has to identify her body. This is awful.
At 17.
At 17. And he says he then finds out what her injuries are. And she was stabbed 56 times.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. Let me take a sip of my positivity because I need it right now. Kill me. So there was 2 fractures to the head. And this is obviously a similarity to Wilma. Remember, she had 2 blows to the head. So the detective was on the news and he was saying, look, obviously there's a similarity here. So we're looking into this. And obviously this man hates prostitutes. So right off the bat, he's making this statement. This is a prostitute thing. So nobody else needs to worry about it. Okay.
Right.
Don't say these things, really. We hear from Mike Green, the forensic pathologist, and he's talking about these stab wounds. He said some of them are like cross-shaped and some of them are rounded. And so they figured out that it looks like maybe it was a screwdriver that was used to make these stab wounds. And then on Emily's body, there was a boot print found on her thigh, which is insane because there's no reason to have a boot print on your thigh. So maybe after he stabbed her 56 times, he then stepped on her, which is crazy. Just, it really kind of tells you what kind of person he is. They said that the boot print was really small. It's about a size 7, which is, you know, small for anybody. So we know he has a small dick. I'm just saying it right now. Yeah, exactly. So this is taking place now in West Yorkshire. West Yorkshire, I learned a lot. This is like a powerhouse place back in the day where they have like lots of textile businesses. They have mills. At one time, it was very wealthy. Okay. But then because of foreign imports, it collapsed. It dismantled. Rich people left the area. And so now you have terrible unemployment, really poor people. So it went from a really high place to a really low place. And that's where we are now in the 70s. So people are really, really struggling. And so they're not worried about prostitutes being murdered. Does that make sense? That's not what's on these people's minds, right? So April 1977, the body of 28-year-old Irene Richardson is found. The body is found by a dog walker in a park. She's face down, feet towards the road, and her boots are laid out neatly on top of her legs. What the fuck? That's so fucking weird. Her handbag is found near her, and the contents of the handbag are neatly laid out next to it on the ground. So creepy, right? So weird. So basically we see a pattern here with these murders. There's a blow to the head, there's death, there's mutilation to the body. There's no evidence of penetrative sex or semen found on the body. The body is laid out. So they're saying this is a serial killer. We have a serial killer, right? This is when the newspaper comes out, the Post comes out with the name, The Ripper. So they have coined the serial killer now as The Ripper. This causes, kind of a fascination. Oh, is this the reincarnation of the Victorian killer, right? But now he's in Yorkshire. So there was, some excitement over that. So they call him the Yorkshire Ripper. And I bet when he saw that, he got a real hard on with this tiny dick. This piece of shit. Okay, so now we have Jim Hobson, and he takes over the investigation. He's leading it. He is talking on the news. He's doing like a little segment, and he's saying the woman was living a fairly respectable life until about 10 days before her death. What the fuck? She was living a fairly respectable life until 10 days before her death. She had gone down in status, and now she was wandering the streets. So even here, you can hear from the lead investigator the disdain for a prostitute, right? He's talking about someone who was murdered. It drives me nuts the way that they talk about these women. It really is so sad. So the police force at the time was a hot freaking mess. It was in complete disarray. Nothing was organized in it. No one knew who was in charge of what, day to day. It was a hot mess. City police definitely looked down on town police, right? So they had that kind of feud going on. They had 100 police forces in the country. So the largest ones were in Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, and then they had these little towns, and these little towns then had their own, right? And so then there's a rivalry between all of them. It's just a freaking mess, okay? It's awful. So we hear from Keith Hellwell, and he was superintendent in Bradford. This is an area called Bradford. And he was talking about how at the time he was a coal miner, and then his wife said, you need to get a decent job. So he became a police officer at the time. If it was so easy, right? You need to get a job. So he did. He became a police officer, and he came in during this really crazy, disorganized time. And then we also hear from Andy Luke too, and he said in 1971, he came home from the Merchant Navy. He didn't know what he was going to do with himself. He was feeling pretty bored at the time. And he saw this advertisement for the police, like, come join the police. You'll never be bored. And he said, great. And he said, and I've never been bored. So this is when they both joined the police forces. And
I wish it was that easy nowadays.
It's so easy. You just say, I don't want to be bored. And then all of a sudden you're wearing a copper hat. It's great. So then by 1974, they're having a mix come, almost like when companies merge, they have started to merge the police forces. So because people are being merged and moved around, what they've lost is a lot of people that would know, like, criminals or prostitutes or informants in certain areas weren't there anymore. They were moved. So now in these areas where you don't really know these people that well, we have a serial killer. And they said that really added to confusion and frustration with getting like leads and information that they needed. Does that make sense? It was all happening at one time. So we now have 3 murders. The police are beyond frustrated. They did have one piece of evidence, which was a tire mark that they had found. They know, though, that it would match like 10,000 tire marks or tires in there, right? So even though they had gotten this piece of evidence, it really wasn't going to work out, right? And they didn't want the public to know that they had this tire mark imprint because they were afraid that person would obviously change their tires, right? Cover the tracks. So we have Jim Hobson. Remember, he's leading the investigation. He's talking in a news segment, and he's saying this man is probably 25 to 35 years old. He's asking women to get in his car in the Chapelton area. Jim had teams in the Chapelton area taking down like every license plate of any car coming through with a single man. So they're trying to get leads going here. They think that the suspect noticed that there was all of a sudden a really big police presence in that area and stopped going there. Okay. So April 1977, we have Detective Chief Superintendent in Bradford, John Doman. He gets a call at home and they say, you got a Ripper murder. So we're not in Chapelton anymore with murders. We've now moved to Bradford. So he picked up on the police activity and he changed where he was gonna murder someone, okay? So a body of 33-year-old Patricia Atkinson is found in Bradford. This is 2 months and 18 days from the last murder. She was a prostitute. And again, because this is a stranger murder, it's much harder to figure out who this is. So this person is now moving all over England. It's a stranger. They have no evidence. There's no DNA at the time, right? It's a clusterfuck. They're not getting any closer to catching him, is the point, okay? So John says in a newscast, I have her diary. There's a lot of people named in this diary, and I want to speak to all of them. You can also save me some time by coming forward to see me. So he's like, we're going to look at everybody. So now we're at 4 murders in 18 months. We meet Krista Ackroyd, and she's talking about how at the time during these murders, she went to a dancing school nearby in the area. And this really shook her up. It really scared her because the last murder, she wasn't found in a field, she was found in a flat. So this is the first time where he went into someone's home and he killed them in their home. Okay, so there's a change there. And so she said that it just is a terrible feeling that this woman, Patricia, probably invited her murderer in, not thinking she was going to be murdered. It is a terrible thought. It really is sad. At the scene, they find bloody boot prints on Patricia's floor, and the boot prints match the boot print found on Emily Jackson. Okay, so we have a link there. So that's really good.
Yeah.
They also could tell that this person like walked to the front door, okay, made the bloody footprints, stopped, then went back and probably adjusted her body to look the way he wanted it to look when she was found. Okay. Ugh. Disgusting. So Krista, she lives in this area, and she says she needs to get information on how to be safe in this area. She wants to empower herself. She wants to be like a news reporter. She said at the time she was 18 years old. She was hopeful. She wanted to change the world. We all were 18 once, honey. I get it. All right. We all feel this way. So she starts working in a newsroom, and she's so excited, but she realizes real quick that women are categorized to only working certain stories. And so Krista is working only on weddings and flower shows, because that's what women can cover, you guys. It's kind of fucking amazing, dude. And she said all the men got all the crime stories, all the interesting good stuff. So I'm feeling bad for you, Krista. It's a hard time to be a woman in news. So she's kind of going through this transition, and we'll see how that changes throughout the series too. Okay. All right. I hope you enjoyed part 1.
That was
Maureen
good.
survives.
Yay, it was good.
For now.
So bananas. So what's so bananas is I'm also going to England in the 1970s.
It's freezing. Don't go. It's cold and muddy. The weather's awful.
I just don't understand how you did a story in England
We're
in the
connected.
70s, and now I'm doing a story in the 70s in England. Now, I actually did this story back in our Superfuck days. It's no longer available to hear, so I thought that I would redo it now that we're handcuffs and sage. Because you loved it to death. Because Timo has a little bit of acting going on in it.
Yes.
And it's such a great story that I can't not tell our listeners it. So So I'm doing the Enfield Poltergeist, which is actually
This is a good one.
a story that the Conjuring movie series took from and made the movie out of. And I think it was either part 2 or part 3. I'm thinking it was part 3. And it's such a scary movie, y'all. And the story I'm going to tell you is friggin' bananas too.
It's crazy.
It's bananas. So I'm not going to actually tell you the story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go like step by step with a documentary that was done on BBC. And there was this host, I don't know what the host name is, but you know, he's standing there in his 70s suit and he's, you know, talking about it. And then they go and they're interviewing literally all the people involved, like one-on-one. It's so awesome. It's just the greatest. And you can find it on YouTube. It's like 30 minutes. It's the best thing in the world. So Enfield is a borough of London, and a borough is basically self-governing wall town. And the story happened in a home on Green Street in 1977 through 1979. So this was a long stretched thing that happened to this family, which is so crazy. It's about a single mom, Peggy Hodgson. She had 4 children, Margaret, 12, Janet, 11, John, 10, and Billy, 7. Now, John was away to boarding school, so he was not in the house when this was happening. And Billy was actually a special needs child. So, when you have a special needs child, there is a lot going on, but you have a lot more connection with what's going on with like the paranormal. So that's even more scary. So this is England's most famous and documented haunting. And the reason why is because of the witnesses. There were so many witnesses that can account for what happened. 17 total. Now, not all 17 were together at one time.
Right.
But there's
they all have their different like little itty bitty stories. I
no
saw
one
this happened.
person, and no one person was alone. Somebody was with them to witness the same thing. The first incident that happened was in August 1977, and the kids' beds started to kind of like rumble a little bit, like kind of shake and bounce a little bit. They told their mom. The mom kind of like brushed it off, like, "Oh, you guys are like jumping on the bed or whatever."
The beds shake all the time. Get used to it, right?
Yeah,
go out to play, don't come back.
It wasn't a big concern. She wasn't like, whatever. So she kind of brushed it off, whatever. But then on August 31st at 9:30 p.m., that's when shit went down. So Peggy was downstairs, the kids were upstairs in bed, and she heard this huge crash. And she was pissed because she's like, what the fuck are these kids doing?
These
upstairs?
motherfucking kids ruining this motherfucking house. Yeah.
So she went upstairs and she went into the bedroom, and the kids were just sitting there, and there was a dresser in the corner. This dresser moved out from the wall by itself about 2 feet and then stopped.
What do you do if you see that? You cry, your knees buckle, you piss yourself. That's what I would do.
And then you move.
Yeah.
And then
like,
you move.
What?
But she was probably dumb like me and goes, oh, nothing.
that's what Peggy did. She was like, what? So she went and she tried to push it back in place.
Yes.
But it felt like it was basically nailed to the ground. It would not budge.
That's crazy.
And then all of a sudden you just would hear a bunch of knocks all over on every which wall, floor, ceiling. There was just a bunch of knocks.
No.
So much
at this point, So at this point, she's like, get up, let's go. They all ran out of the house and ran over to the neighbor's house because they were like, fuck this.
So scary.
So their next door neighbors, really cool people. They, her neighbor's name was also Peggy, and the husband's name was Vic. Name. Right. Yeah. So it's Peggy and Vic Nottingham. And Vic went next door to check it out. And immediately, as soon as he walked in, he started hearing the knocks, and he thought it was like maybe the pipes. He didn't really realize, what was going on. But then it just kept on going and going. And he's like, this is weird. So they ended up calling the police. But the police back then were called constables. I don't know if they still are or not. So
the constables.
2 police officers showed up. They were hearing the knocks and they looked everywhere and they couldn't find where this was coming from.
Imagine being one of these constables being called out and they're saying, obviously it's a ghost. Can you find it? Do you have sage?
Right.
They don't know. They don't know what to do. Come on.
So this is really weird because what they witnessed next, they wrote like affidavits on it. Like they signed and they basically said, this is what we saw. We're not lying. I'll sign a piece of paper and tell you. So the special needs kid, Billy, basically showed them, he's like pointing over to, there was a chair in the corner. So he's pointing to the chair and all of a sudden it moved out by itself from the wall, like 4 feet. Okay. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? So they're like, well, we can't do anything about this because this is not law. This is nobody's breaking the law.
This is not our area of expertise.
Yeah, peace out.
Yeah,
so they left,
get the cherry
right?
ticket and that's it.
But they are on record. They did, a TV crew did like interview them and they're saying what they saw and they're saying that's what they saw. So they all spent the night at the Nottinghams, and the very next night, Vic and Peggy, the Nottinghams, they went back over and they started hearing the knocking again. Vic walked into the living room and he said that he saw a Lego. Now, I'm not exactly sure if it's American Legos, if Legos in Europe are the same, but he said he saw a Lego float up and then it was thrown at him.
Oh my God.
And it hit him in the elbow so hard that it made a welt on his arm.
Legos hurt.
Yeah.
Legos hurt. You ever step on a Lego? Oh,
but if you throw a Lego, that has to be pretty hard to throw it to make a mark on you.
Yes.
So at this point, they're like, fuck this. So they ended up calling Maurice Gross. And he is from the Society of Psychical Research. And he's basically an inventor by day, but then he devotes all his leisure time to the supernatural. And he basically did a full-on investigation and interview of this experience. Now, this is what the whole documentary is about. It's all his like recordings and his interviews. And OMG, just wait, just hang on.
Yes, give bananas. It, girl. Give it.
So they're showing videos of him in the house with the family and whatever, and they're showing recreations of kind of what happened to go along with his recordings. Now, his recordings back then is on those big machines with the 2 reels, okay? So you have these 2 big, huge reels going on, and you can see him like pressing the buttons and whatever.
It's so great. It's so fantastic.
So the first recording, you can hear he's in the bedroom with the girls, and the lights go out, and you can hear the girls going, oh, the lights went out, the lights. And then there's a crash, and then the girls sound like they're really scared and like in a panic. They almost sound like they're starting to cry. And then you hear Maurice go, the lamp was thrown across the room and pulled out of the socket.
What?
And they replugged it in 3 different times and it did the same thing. So this is happening in this small little bedroom. He's recording the whole thing, and then they're showing recreations, which are so hilarious, right?
Oh, reenactments are the best. My dream to be a reenactment actress. I could
and in the 1970s, come on. Yeah. Yes, delicious.
Love it.
So after that, Gross was standing by the door and a slipper was thrown at him. So you can hear, he goes by the door and he's doing the recreation, right? And he's standing there, and then a shoe, because I guess they call shoes slippers. So a shoe was thrown at the door and he's like, oh, whatever. But while they're doing this, they're playing the recording, and you can hear the children with like totally like fear in their voices, and
yes,
like
of course,
whimpering.
how terrifying that is. Oh my gosh.
They're whimpering and they're crying. And then Gross explains, and they go to just like an interview with him, and he explains that the entity he believes is very violent, and he and 12 others witnessed a settee, which is a sofa in England, being thrown up into the air and flipped upside down about 1 foot in front of him.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is so crazy because there's him and 12 other people in the room that saw this. So it's like, wow.
That's the thing.
Right. Then they go to just a recording, and they're showing, they're playing the recording. Gross is claiming that he wants to communicate with whatever entity is in this home. He says, knock 1 for no and knock 2 for yes. So he's like, are you a male spirit? And there's 2 knocks. Did you used to live in this house? 2 knocks. Was it more than 50 years ago? 2 knocks. Did you die in this house? 2 knocks. Okay, so basically he's pinpointing somebody here. And then while he's saying this, you can hear people in the background, not only the little girls, but you can hear probably Peggy, Vic, and whoever else is there.
Peggy, and Vic.
Yeah. They're gasping and they're like whimpering, and you can tell that they're just in the utmost shock that he's actually getting reactions to his questions. Then he's like, why are you here? Are you unhappy? 1 knock. Do you want to give us a special message? 1 knock. And then, which is so funny, now they go back to the neighbor, Peggy, and they're interviewing Peggy and her husband, Vic. They were standing in the kitchen. So they were just kind of hanging out there. And she said a puddle of water appeared on the floor out of nowhere.
And then a water?
Just a water puddle just kind of came up. And then they heard the toilet flush in the bathroom that was like connected to the kitchen. So basically it's one of those toilets with the tall pipe, and then the toilet tank is above, and you got a chain. Right. Yep. She said they heard the chain pull, it flushed. And when they went to open the bathroom to see what was going on, knowing that no one was in there, the toilet brush lifted up from its container and laid itself gently on top of the toilet seat.
OMG. And the ghost is like, clean it.
Hey, clean this shit now.
Right. And it's so funny. She's like, it was like they used the bathroom and then they decided to clean it afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
Fantastic. Love everything about it.
Right. Then after that happened, the fucking kitchen table flipped over, and Janet, who was sitting in a chair, Janet is the 11-year-old daughter, she friggin' flew across the room.
Oh my goodness. How about we get the kids out of the house? How about everybody just help burn the house down?
Yeah. Nope. And I guess that happened more than once. That had happened more than once with
these
Janet.
Poor kids.
So then Vic Nottingham said that he witnessed a 10-pound chair being thrown across the room perfectly in a straight line, 9 feet in distance, and then just sat there and stopped. It was just a perfect straight line, but he said it was 10 pounds, and not only he witnessed it, but a few others witnessed it. So there's a lot of fucking shit going on. Then we're going to bring in a third family into the mix, and this is John and Sylvia Burkham. And John is actually Peggy's brother. Now, Peggy, the mom, Peggy's brother, and they lived down the street, and they had been coming over constantly after this was going on, and they were trying to help to figure out what was going on. John said that him and his wife were downstairs. They heard a large crashing sound upstairs. He ran up and he saw that Margaret, the oldest daughter, was kind of like laying on the floor in shock. She didn't really know what was going on. And he's like, where is Janet? He couldn't find Janet. So he found Janet in the corner, and she was hanging over a dresser by one leg. And on top of the dresser was a radio, like one of those old school radios. So she was kind of like just hanging there, right?
What?
Yeah. And then he screamed for Sylvia. And as he screamed for Sylvia, Janet was dropped and she's just
Ugh.
kind of like sitting there on top of this dresser. And
So
Sylvia
she was
never
being
made it
hung
up.
by one foot, like
Yeah.
in the air, and then she's
Dangling.
dropped.
Yes.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
Wow.
Sylvia didn't make it in time to see what was going on. So he was basically the only one that saw this one. I think this is a recording, but they're not showing anybody, that they're just playing the recording.
Mm-hmm.
So Gross says, why are you upsetting this family? Is it because you enjoy doing it? 2 knocks. He's like, are you having a game with me? Which is basically meaning like,
are you fucking with me?
Are you fucking
Come on.
with
Yeah.
me? Right.
Yeah.
And there's no sound. When and then you hear a crash, and one of the girls screams, and then the mother says something, but you really can't understand what she's saying because she's off in the distance. And then Gross explains that a cardboard box and pillow were thrown across the room at his face.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The recreation of this one was so
spectacular.
Good. So
Yes.
good. And when he asked that and they get the 2, which means yes, you can hear like the voices, like they're like, oh my God, they're like freaking out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he's like, he asked them again, do you enjoy upsetting this family? And there's 2 knocks. Will you please go away? 1 knock. Yes, you've had fun enough. It's time to go away. 1 knock. You understand me? Please go away. 1 knock. And Gross is like getting angrier and angrier.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, you must go away. It's absolutely essential. 1 knock. And it kept knocking 1, whatever he said, 1, 1, 1. So he's finally said, yes, goodbye. And then he stopped talking because he wasn't going to just keep on going, because it basically was saying, I'm not going to go away. Now, here's the crazy part, y'all. Now they go, Margaret, the older sister, and Janet are sitting on a couch, and Gross is across from them sitting on a chair, and he's interviewing them. Now, Janet is basically the one that's being affected more than anyone else. And come to find out that she's kind of being possessed, maybe, or her body is being used as some type of tool for these spirits to come in and speak through her.
Oh my goodness. Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
So as the little girls are sitting there, you kind of hear this kind of like growly sound, but you really don't know for sure what that is. You're not sure where it comes from. And then Gross goes, how many voices are there? And then from Janet, a deep, raspy voice says, 600.
Oh,
Everyone leave the house, run. Get out of the house. Let's go.
And then after that, the same voice says, that's a joke. And then Gross goes, how many really are there? And then Margaret answers him. She's like 10. And she's totally interrupted right when she's trying to say that by the voice, by Janet. 3. And Janet kind of looks over at Janet, like, or Margaret looks over at Janet, and she's like, okay. Like, it's really a weird interview. And if you watch it, you see the girls, they're kind of just like kids, and they're, they're like 13 and 11. They're kind of just like, like, we're being interviewed, we're going to be on TV or whatever. And they're just kind of like, yeah, this is what's going on. They don't really know what's up, whatever. Margaret then explains that some of the names are rubbish. And there's this long, deep growl from Janet. And it's so scary, y'all. It's like, and it reminds me of The Exorcist so much because it's so scary. And then
that sound, the thought of that is terrifying to me.
Yeah. She's not making any facial expressions. You can't see her mouth move. It's so wild.
Ugh.
So he asked Janet, how do you feel about being haunted by a poltergeist? And Janet, in her normal voice, goes, it's not haunted. And then Margaret whispers, shut up, to her. So it's kind of weird. Like, she's like so her sister is scolding her.
This dynamic is odd. Right.
It's really weird. things that it's done to them. Like it's thrown Margaret into a bookshelf. It slammed a cupboard. It threw their mom at a cupboard. And then Gross goes, have you asked it to go away? And they both say yes. Then Gross goes, how does it reply? And they say that it's not going away, that it's staying. So then they go to a video of Maurice, and he's in the girls' room, and he has his little recorder, and he said he had done an experiment in the girls' bedroom, and Margaret and Janet were in there with their mom, and it was totally dark, and they're sitting in the room, and he plays the recording, and all you hear is these weird, like whistling, like, and like it's so weird. I don't even know how to do it. Whistling, and then
He's
all of a
picking
sudden,
up on whistling.
yeah. So there's somebody's like whistling in the room, and then there is barking.
Okay.
And the barking sounds just like a dog. There's no dog in the room, but this is Janet. Janet is making all these sounds from whoever's possessing her, I guess. So then Gross asks it, if you can whistle and bark, then you can talk to me. Call out my name, my first and last name. So they're waiting and they're waiting, and he keeps on telling it, like, say my name, say my name. And it does. It says Morris Gross in this raspy voice.
God.
So his name is Maurice, but in the English accent, they call him Morris. So it goes Morris Gross in this like raspy, scary voice. And it says it 2 more times, and then it just starts barking at them.
Ugh,
And then the
God.
recording stops. Yeah. And it's so crazy, even just to hear the barks. Even barks are just so demented. Then they go back to the interview on the couch. Gross asked Janet, when did the voices start? And she said like around December 12th. But Margaret kind of shakes her head. I don't really know what's going on with that. And then he asked, how did they start? And as Janet is trying to explain, all of a sudden there's a bunch of knocking all around the room. And the girl's like, she stops and she kind of like smiles. And then Margaret is kind of like smiling, and they're just kind of like snickering, laughing, like, there it goes. Like, it's so weird how they are acting. And then they tried to ask it to do it on command. So he's like, will you do that? Will you do that? Will you knock again? And it's totally quiet. And he's like, it's not doing it. So Margaret explains, yeah, it's not going to do it when you ask it to do it. It will do it when it wants to do it. Then he asks, what about the voices? They sometimes say things and make answers, right? And there's a low growl, that scary raspy growl again. And he goes, is that the voice now? And Margaret looks at Janet, and you hear this, yeah, like the scary yeah, right? And then Gross decides to start talking to it. He's like, is anybody there? Nothing. And the girls are sitting there and they're kind of like smiling. How many voices are there? Janet says in her normal voice, Dirty Dick, Andrew Gardner, and Stuart Certain. Where are those words coming from? Where are those names coming
This
from?
little
Like,
girl is
I
saying
know.
Dirty Dick.
Dirty Dick, Andrew Gardner, and Stuart Certain. And
Who the
Gross
F are
goes,
these peeps?
what do you think these are? Are they people or just voices? Janet goes, they could be spirits. I don't know. Then Margaret chimes in. She says, they're ghosts or spirits speaking through us. I don't know. And then Margaret's like, yes, they play around and they joke and they be silly. And then Gross goes,
they be silly?
Yeah, they just be silly. And then Gross goes, do you think there's anyone there right now? Margaret nods no, but Janet then in her fucking scary ass raspy voice goes, yeah, I do. What the fuck? The fuck,
Do they
fuck,
end
fuck.
up like sacrificing and killing both girls just not to hear this shit?
Oh
I'd
my
like
gosh.
never ever be with, I'd separate them all the time.
Yeah. Can't be together. Sorry,
Yeah,
humans.
That's it.
So Gross goes, who's that? And Janet smiles and says in her normal voice, pardon? Still smiling, and says, Stuart Surtent. So she's talking in her normal voice, and she's like, yeah, that's Stuart that's talking. And then Gross goes, Stuart Surtent? He's one of the voices? And Janet says, yes. Why do you think he comes and speaks through you? And Janet goes, to annoy us. Does he ever say anything nice? And then Janet goes, well, don't know really. Shall we try to speak with him? And then Janet goes, yeah. So this is all just a conversation between Janet and Gross. There's no raspiness. This is just whatever. And then Gross goes, is anybody there? And then Janet, in a growly voice, goes, hold on to your butts. Knock, knock.
No, I don't like this. I don't like this.
Stop
Janet.
it. I'm outside in the
Backhands her. Oh my gosh.
Y'all, Dre's recording in her car out in the dark. Sorry, Dre.
I'm scary.
You
What
will
did I
survive.
Lock myself in.
Okay, now while this is happening, Janet is just sitting there. She's kind of fidgeting. She's rubbing her face, but she has no facial expressions. She's just kind of like sitting there, like in a nothingness. So Gross
weird.
goes, who's there?
Oh,
No, don't
God.
say who's there. No. Yeah.
So Janet, in her horrible raspy voice, goes, Doctor. So then Gross goes, Doctor Who? And you hear this kind of like growling, kind of like laugh, because in England, that's where Doctor Who came from.
That was a good one, Janet.
That's a shout out to Kat right there.
Good.
And then Janet says something in the raspy voice, but it's inaudible. I mean, maybe if someone, speaks in the English language or the English accent.
Oh, we do. Oh, yes.
Maybe they couldn't understand what she says. It kind of says like, there's so much to choose from, or there's so much stuff here. I'm not exactly sure what she says. So then it cuts from there, because that right there is fucking bananas. Gross is then talking one-on-one with the host, and he's basically saying, these are little girls. People are going to think this is a hoax. This is all made up. They're having fun and games with you guys, whatever. So he's like, what do you think? What do you think? And Gross goes, absolutely not. And this is why. We've done tests on them. Oh, and the host also said, are you sure they're not like good ventriloquists? People can learn that, whatever. And he's like, we've done tests.
It turns out they're circus performers. They've been perfecting this for years. I love it.
But Gross goes, they can't ventriloquize. And to keep this up, he says they're just not doing this here and there. They're doing this for like 3 hours. They're not doing it for 3 hours straight, but they're doing it off and on in a 3-hour period. This would absolutely damage their vocal cords if they kept this up for that point in time. So he's like, no, it's not a hoax. This is real, because there's just no way that they could have, speak normally and then go back and forth without some type of crazy, throat thing going on. Then they're playing a recording that Gross took of the girls, and it sounds like Janet's voice, like in that growly again, and it says, I'm invisible. So Gross is sitting like maybe at his hotel or whatever, and he has that big tape recorder and he's playing this. So he's stopping and he's kind of repeating what they're saying. And then you hear Gross, you're invisible. Why are you invisible? And then the voice goes, because I am a GHOST. And then Gross laughs and says, yeah, he has a sense of humor, but he also tended to swear a lot. So he's kind of like playing along with it, whatever. He's talking to the host back and forth. And then he's kind of talking overall about, how it all went, technical stuff. He said that they have 180 hours of tape that were recorded.
Wow.
So this documentary only plays like maybe a tenth of what all the shit that he recorded.
Damn.
And I've heard some other recordings, which are wild. They're like full stories, full sentences of Janet talking in that voice. So then Margaret goes, when we're separate, we don't get these voices. But as soon as we are together, that's when the voices come, which is kind of crazy.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Gross goes, but Janet, your voices are much stronger than Margaret. Because Margaret was having a little bit of voices too, but it was mainly focused at Janet. And they both nod at the same time, like, right, it's mostly Janet. Then Gross says, when you hear the voice and it comes out, where does it come from? Does it come from your throat? And it goes, no, it comes from the back of my neck. And Margaret like
so
shakes her,
crazy.
like she's like, yeah, right. And so it
almost like they're a puppet, right?
Yeah.
Like they're being used.
And then Gross goes, and so it must be as if somebody else is speaking. And Margaret goes, yes, but from behind us. And he's like, do you get the feeling? Do you get a feeling when they're, when you hear this one? And Margaret says yes. And then Janet's raspy voice goes, yeah. And then Gross goes, and do they tell you much about themselves? And Margaret, in her normal voice, goes, no, not really. Part 2, hang on to your butts, because this is even more scarier. All of a sudden, you hear that raspy voice go, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Now that hurts my voice just on that little bit. My throat is friggin' killing me now. And I'm not even making it any close to how it actually sounds, but it is so creepy. It is so creepy. So then basically at this point, one of the scariest things that she talks about, she says that she is a man named Bill Wilkins. And she says that she's a man in his 70s. He died in their house. And on the recording, Janet speaks as Bill Wilkins, and Gross is asking him questions. And he said, just before I died, I went blind. And then I had a hemorrhage and I fell asleep and died in the chair in the corner downstairs. So she's giving specific information here. So they were able to find Terry Wilkins, who is the son of Bill Wilkins. And when he heard this recording of Janet talking,
what
he agreed.
What a trip, man.
Yes.
What a trip.
I'm getting the chills right now. He agreed that that was the voice of his father and confirmed that he had went blind and died of a hemorrhage in an armchair in the house that they live in.
Oh my God. Well,
Woo!
and then everyone ran out of the house. When does everybody run out of the house?
They don't. They
That's
don't,
insane.
basically. So then they're like he's interviewing her more, and she's talking more as Bill Wilkins, right? And he basically says, "This is my home. Get out of my house." And Gross goes, "You're dead. Don't you know that you're dead?" "Yes, but I came from out of the grave." And he's like,
all right, Bill.
From out of the
right.
grave? And he's like, "Yes, in Durrance Park. My name is Bill Wilkins, and I came from Durrance Park, and I am 72 years old, and I've come here to see my family, but they are not here now." What the fuck? So it goes on and on and on, the investigation, but this is basically how far the documentary went. At this point, it goes to talk about how Maurice Gross got into, ghost hunting and all this stuff. He had like a show on BBC. It was like a TV show, ghost hunting, whatever. And they talk about how he got married and how he had a daughter named Janet. She passed away at a young age as a child. And him and his wife had kind of like a paranormal experience where they think that maybe their daughter Janet was trying to connect with them.
Wow.
So at this point, were like, okay, so what happened? What happened to Janet and the family? Janet unfortunately went through several religious rites and eventually was sent to live in a kind of like a mental institution for a little while.
Oh, no.
The hauntings,
Honey.
after that, the hauntings just stopped. But the family said Bill Wilkins never went away. It just lessened and lessened. So if you go on YouTube, you can see this documentary, and then you could actually see a couple other documentaries where they are interviewing Janet as an adult, Margaret as an adult, and the mother before she passed away.
What a trip, man.
And
okay.
it's bananas. It's bananas to see how like their experience. They are honest to this day. They're grown women. They are not, they're sticking with their story, y'all. Like, this happened. It was not a hoax. And even in one of the interviews, it just happened to be Margaret and the mom. And Janet didn't want to be a part of it. She didn't want to have. And later on, I guess money speaks. I guess they gave her a great price, and she was able to do other ones where she is on there. But oh my God. So The Conjuring, we all know the series is connected also to Annabelle and The Nun. They all come together. It's the Conjuring universe. So I believe this is part 3. It's so scary, y'all. A lot of the stuff didn't really happen, but they make it for like movie time. All the Conjuring movies are just awesome to me. Part 1, I think, is the most scariest for me. And that is about the Perrin family, which I did talk about. That's kind of like the true life of the Perrins. But oh my gosh, this one has to be scary too. And this interview is bomb. I mean, to see this little girl talking in that voice and just kind of sitting there, and it's so wild. Go watch it. It's so crazy.
What's the name of it? We need to know.
Yes. I'm sorry. I was going to look it up. Talk amongst yourselves. Why don't we go to that story? Badass
the minute
story.
You said Annabelle. Huh?
What?
I said the minute you said Annabelle, you guys remember my dream. You
yes.
know, I woke up, okay, for listeners, I woke up like, I don't know what morning it was because my days are all mixed, right? But I woke up talking about the nightmare I had. I was like in tears. It was like that. I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're like so passionate in your dream about something that you're trying to yell or scream so loud that you end up speaking in real life, and it comes out like a garbled mess. Like, it sounds creepy as fuck, right? And so I'm having a dream that there's like these dolls hanging in the closet, and I'm like, nope, oh hell no, this is demonic at best. So I start screaming like, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to depart, or something, in my dream. And in real life, well, first of all, as I say that, all the dolls, the lights turn red, their eyeballs turn red, and they start cackling like, no. And I'm like freaking out. So I said it even louder and stronger, and I just felt like I had no voice or something. And so in my dream, I'm screaming, and in real life, I'm screaming out loud. And so Juan, my husband, wakes up like, what? Like, why are you like,
poor Juan.
trying to, like,
you wake up and he's
complete this
crying.
exorcism
He's
in
like,
the middle of the night? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Poor thing. So I was
Poor
not
thing.
sleeping that night. So, I go to work. Oh no, I wake. Then Aurora walks into the room at like 3:30 in the morning.
No.
And she's like, I had a nightmare. I'm like, get in bed. I had to wake up at like 6 just to get to work. So I went to work, and then later on, I text you guys like our conversation.
Yes.
Because I was like, I'm recording this. Baby,
Crazy.
what did you dream about last night? Fucking Annabelle.
No.
It was crazy. And her sweet little voice was telling you the scary ass dream.
And she's so nonchalant about it. She's like telling, and then she starts changing the subject, and then she's like, oh, and then la, which she's not making this shit up. She's like fully a kid telling the story. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I can't watch Annabelle anymore. It freaks me the fuck out, guys.
Yeah, don't watch it. Terrifying.
Okay, y'all.
All right,
so it's called The Enfield Poltergeist. It's by a subscriber on YouTube, and I'm just gonna say it's not a person, like it's a weird thing. It's 21. This is the name of the subscriber. 0015 Allen, ALLAN. He has 8,000 subscribers. This, just so you know, this is, because you're going to scroll through a lot of them if you search for it. This one is 34 minutes and 43 seconds. So when you see the 34, 43, you know, and it's the actual BBC from the 70s documentary. So it's grainy. The sound quality is not that great, but it's so good.
I prefer it this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. 34 minutes. Killing it. Good job, Timo. Yay! Woo, woo, woo. All right. Are you all ready for
Badass story of the week?
Woo!
Woo!
All right, so my badass today is Flavane Carvalho. She is a badass waitress in Florida. So she was scheduled to be off on this day. Okay, she was not scheduled to be at work, but her coworker called out sick, so they had her come in to work on this day. During her shift, she served a family of 4: mom, dad, little boy, little girl. Right? The little boy didn't order any food, and picks the food up and says, "Oh, is something wrong? Did we miss something? Did we get the order right? What's going on? You know, he's not eating." And then the dad says, "Oh, he's not going to eat here. He'll eat something at home." Right?
So
as a
weird,
mother,
right?
that's fucking weird. I don't care if you order fruit. I don't care if you order dessert. Whatever. You're going to order something.
Or
right?
even just say, "Oh, he's going to have some of our food," right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, we're sharing. Whatever.
Right.
The little boy was sitting there with a hoodie on, some glasses, and a mask. Right? What the fuck? That's weird. So, you know, her mommy tingly spider senses went off, and she was like just observing. So a little while later on, she noticed that even though he was wearing glasses, there was like a scratch in between his eyebrows, and then he had like bruising on his face. Right? The hoodie and the mask were covering stuff up. Later on, she saw that he had a bruise on his like arm, wrist area.
So crazy. Oh my goodness.
So crazy. So then she like is grateful because, strangely enough, the little boy is sitting in a spot where the parents can't see her, and he has a clear view of her where she could like write a note. So she writes him a note. The note that she writes him, and she says it took like 3 times for him to like actually respond, because I think he was afraid to respond. The first one said, "Are you okay?" And he, you know, took like 3 times, and eventually he shook his head like, "No, I'm not okay." So can you imagine being in her position? Like, holy shit, what do I do? He's not okay.
Right. All of these red flags are going up. You don't want to like cross the line with, you know, your customers, but you know something's wrong. She's got to do something. Right.
So she comes back with another note and says, "Do you need help?" And eventually he says yes. Right. So she goes ahead and calls the police, and the police come. They you know, they question everybody. It comes out that this is a stepfather, right? His name is Timothy Wilson, motherfucker. Initially, he was charged with 1 count of 3rd-degree child abuse because, you know, they could see like stuff on his body. They talked to the little boy. He's 11 years old. He is 20 pounds underweight. He's malnourished, right? So he comes out and says the stepdad had hit him with his fists, a wooden broom, and a back scratcher. He was also hung upside down from a door frame by his ankles, and sometimes they strapped him to a furniture dolly.
Oh no.
This is awful. This is
awful. So eventually the count was changed to multiple counts of child abuse and neglect. The mom was questioned. She did know about what was going on, and she was charged with 2 counts.
Bitch.
Right, fucking bitch. How do you
These
not?
These are her kids. Yeah, these are her kids, and she's allowing this to happen.
I don't understand.
I don't
understand. I don't. Oh my God.
I never will.
I will never understand this.
No, it's disgusting.
So they did find that the 4-year-old little girl didn't have any evidence of child abuse or neglect, which was really good. They had just moved into town and were staying at an extended stay hotel.
Wow.
So let's talk about how crazy this is. This waitress, A, wasn't even supposed to be there.
Right.
B, the little boy was sitting in the perfect spot where she could like secretly
Right.
communicate with him, right?
Right.
But 3, what a freaking badass that she was able to work up the courage to do something, right? She
I
didn't
bet she
just
was
ignore
terrified,
it.
right? I bet she was
Right.
terrified to do that, and she did it. I'm so glad she did. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Good job.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. So the police actually said that she saved his life, and that this definitely would have been, if she hadn't said something, that eventually this would have been a murder investigation. She saved his life.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. So
yeah,
she
because
is my
we've heard
badass
stories like this.
all the
Absolutely.
time. It's so heartbreaking, you guys. I can't even the stuff that I hear. I don't know what it is about like Antelope Valley, but some nasty, ugly things go on out there. It's just so bad. Women, if you're in an abusive relationship, please, for the safety and life of your children, just get the fuck out. Like, there's nothing. No man is worth it.
No, and you can always Facebook message us, Instagram message us. Just put like banana, and guess what?
Yeah,
we'll figure something out. That's the safe word. Banana.
Absolutely, banana will be the safe word forever.
Yes,
just send us a banana.
I am so amazed. This is a total badass. This is a total badass. And I know that sometimes we find ourselves in our life in situations where we don't know if we should do something. You should do something.
Yeah.
Always.
Absolutely.
I think so.
Always do something.
Always do something. Always, always, always. Good job, Dre.
Yay, Dre.
Holla. All right. You guys can always reach us on Instagram, Facebook. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok. We would love you guys to leave reviews for us on iTunes. You can be a badass. Just take a second. 5 stars, obviously a review telling us how amazing we are and you love it. We have our Patreon page. There's different levels, different ways to support us, and you guys get swag and we send you some love, and we appreciate you guys always. A shout out to Hilda and Liv, and I really appreciate all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed today. More to come. Lots of listener stories coming up.
I've gone into our Patreon page too, and I've added some fun stuff. It's old because since COVID, we haven't been able to get together and do some fun events, but there are little things that we've done in the past. You've probably seen them on our other social media, but I just wanted to kind of repost them and, give you a little story about them. But once COVID is over and we have some fun things in the works, we'll be posting stuff that's just special just for our patrons. So that's fun. That's going to come up.
Yeah, an episode's coming out before anyone
right
else can hear it. You can hear
early
it on the
release.
Patreon page.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have fun things coming up like that for our Patreon supporters. We appreciate you. Good things coming up in the next couple months. My psychic told me that. So the psychic also said, good things come to you if you leave iTunes reviews. That's interesting. That's kind of crazy she said that. I love you all. Message us always. Leave reviews. Are you ready?
We're ready.
And remember, we do what we
want.
All day, every day.
We sounded great that time. We were all in sync.
Sure. Okay. Right.
Are we always?
All right. Bye.
Bye. Love you.
Bye. See
you. Goodbye. Handcuffs and Sage is hosted by Red, Timo, and Dre in a shitty guest room in Los Angeles.
Theme music is Leave Now by We Are Wasted. Cover art done by Megan Winchester.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Show some love on iTunes. Be a badass and do what you want. Until next time.